Hey, hello everybody. Welcome to our Dive 101 education session again. This is our third session, and I'm very happy to have Kevin Ling from SSI, his course director, to be with us today. And we will be talking about breathing techniques and how it will help you achieve your buoyancy and also your maneuverability underwater. So without further ado, I would like to pass on this mic to Kevin. Kevin, please.
Hi everyone, my name is Kevin. I'm an instructor trainer from SSI, based in Malaysia, and I've been teaching scuba diving since 2016. So yeah, today I'm going to talk about how breathing actually affects your buoyancy underwater. So without further ado, maybe I'll just show you the PowerPoint first. Okay, all right. So just a little bit to talk about the perfect buoyancy. So a lot of times, right? Divers are actually, what I see. I mean, throughout my teaching, throughout the past 6 years, actually, I've seen a lot of divers actually they put too much of weight on themselves. Just they say that a lot of times they comment that I can't go down. I need more weights. I need 3 or 4 or 5 or 6 or even 7 or 8 weights to go down. All right. So a lot of times that if you learn the proper breathing way, you actually can use the way how to say, like, you actually a lot of times, how to say, like, you actually can put your lung, get it smaller. Okay. Then you try to exhale out everything before you go down. And what I usually teach during my perfect buoyancy is that I ask my students to carry lesser weight, okay, compare to having more weights to help them to go down. But how they're going to do that? Okay, so maybe I'll just go through the PowerPoint with you now. All right. So a lot of times when you go diving, right, because when they carry too much of weight to help them to go down underwater, and a lot of times you actually need to inflate a little bit. I mean, probably some air into your BC when you go down, but without you knowing that actually, the deeper you go, the air that actually you inflate into your BC just now, you get compressed. So for instance, like if you go to 5 meters, you inflate a little bit. So as it goes move along into 10 meters, the air that you actually inflate just now, you get compressed, okay, and then you need to inflate again, okay. So a lot of times the maneuverability, the buoyancy underwater, kind of like controlled by the expansion and the compression of the air in your BC. So to me, what's the best neutral buoyancy for me is that there's totally no air. So it's like empty all the air from your BC. Okay, but then the problem comes when the students say that, oh, if I already empty my BC, but I still cannot go down, so I need to carry more weights. Okay, so but a lot of times that they don't know that, like the students, when they go down to 5 meters, especially from 0 to 10 meters, that from Boyle's law, you can see that that's the biggest changes of the volume from 100% to 50%, which is like almost half. So a lot of times you actually need to exhale everything from your lung, and at the same time you empty everything from your BC and go down to 5 meters. So once you achieve that, after 5 meters, or after 3 meters, you actually don't really need to inflate your BC, and then you can continue dive in neutral buoyancy. I will say, okay. And then from there, you actually can use your lung, okay, your breathing patterns to actually control your buoyancy underwater. How would I say that? Because for breathing, I mean, like for me, I actually have my own breathing patterns that I always tell my students is that, the moment your lung is actually, you can act like a BC underwater. It's like a buoyancy compensator underwater. Okay, so if you can put your lung, get it bigger, make it big, right? Then you can achieve that buoyancy. If you know that when the tank is actually fully loaded, right, it's actually you give it extra weight underwater. But as the tank getting lower and lower in the pressure, okay, so like for instance, like 200 bar. So every 50 bar, you actually probably lost around 600 to 700 grams. Okay, so as you use the air from the tank, okay, you actually lose your weight underwater. So at the times, you probably can reduce the size of your lung. Okay, so just to maintain the buoyancy. Okay, so for myself, I actually developed some breathing patterns. So I don't how to say that you breathe in. So a lot of times when we teach students, right, a lot of I would say that some students, they actually breathe in like long and deep breath, like so it's actually very changes of volume size of your lung. Okay, so it actually changes the your breathing, your buoyancy patterns underwater. For me, it's actually usually what I feel that as long as I breathe in until one point, so I'll release a little bit, and then I'll breathe in. So I try to maintain the volume of my lung underwater just for that period of time. Then as my air tank getting lighter and lighter, okay, probably I left me 100 bar or 70 bar, you know, and you want to do a safety stop. Then a lot of times students will say that, you know, I lost. I mean, like I cannot do my 5 minute, 5 meter, 3 minute safety stops. Okay. Then they will say that they will start to say that, you know, I need to carry more weights because I always go up, you know, as I always ascend up without them actually, they cannot manage to control. Okay, but if you know how to play around with your breathing, okay, you actually can make your lungs smaller. And then you breathe in, and then you need to remember that there's a breathing pattern that I actually always teach my students, is that I always breathe in probably 3 to 4 seconds, okay? And my exhalation is always longer than my inhalation, for instance, like 6 to 7 seconds. That's actually my rules of thumb. Why? Because the moment if you try to breathe rapidly, you will get into hyperventilations. If you try to like so this is like you going into hyperventilation. Hyperventilation underwater is actually quite dangerous. It's not to say quite dangerous, it's actually very dangerous for you to do hyperventilation underwater. Because as you hyperventilate underwater, you start to get dizzy. Why? Because your heart pump too fast. Okay, because you know when as you actually hyperventilate, right, your heart rate will actually go up. Okay, and if you know that the diffusion process whereby the oxygen that actually brings into your blood, the red blood cells, and carry to all the parts of the body, that diffusion process will not be in a very conducive environment to happen. Okay, this is because of there's actually your blood. I mean, your blood actually turns a little bit alkaline when you actually hyperventilate. Hence, the diffusion process, right? Where the diffusion process is actually where the oxygens goes into your red blood cell, carried by the hemoglobin. Okay, that process will actually have some resistance when you hyperventilate. So imagine yourself, right? If you try to take 10 balloons and try to blow it, right, in a very short meantime, at one point, right, probably on 7 or on 8 balloon, you actually will start to get dizzy. Okay, try to imagine that. Okay, so do not hyperventilate underwater. So I do not ask my students to actually practice hyperventilation, but you can always control the size of the volume of your lung to maintain the buoyancy underwater. So it's easy to talk, but it's hard to practice. Okay, so I would suggest that for those students who would like to practice this type of buoyancy with the proper breathing skill, I would suggest you to get a dive professional to actually teach you how to use the breathing patterns to control your buoyancy. But first thing first is that you don't carry too much of weight. Okay, for myself, it's like I actually seen you know, a lot of times people say that, you know, I have a bigger size, you know, and I carry I have more fats in me, you know, that's why I need to carry more weights. I actually have people double my size, actually using 1 kilo of weights. Okay, so it's all come back to how you actually not to say control, practice your breathing patterns to get into the perfect buoyancy. Yeah.
Right. Kevin, I have experience myself. So basically, what happened is I have a rule, not say rule of thumb, but I have a practice saying that 20 kg equals to 1 kg of weight. So every 20 kg that you add to your body mass, that is 1 kg of weight block that you add to your weight belt. Okay,
Mm-hmm.
so if you are 60 kg, you have 3 blocks of 1 kg. That's it.
Mm-hmm.
Of course, we have a lot of students, we have a lot of new divers that have
Mm-hmm.
difficulty descending. I'm talking about not underwater descent, but from the surface, descending from the surface, that initial breakthrough.
Yep.
So I believe this topic will be talking about that. And you really have to empty your lungs. I mean,
Yep.
I mean, without putting into, because we have 3 mm wetsuit, we have 5 mm wetsuit, we also have 7 mm semi-dry or 7 mm wetsuit, or we have our rash guard and stuff like that. But then how I see a lot of divers is that 1 kg to 20 kg of mass, and then even
Mm-hmm.
so, they really need to empty their lung from to break the water surface to descend. I think you can, Kevin, I believe you can share more about that. On the surface, to descend, that is the most difficult thing that, like what you have mentioned, I need more weight belt to descend. But
Yep.
actually, you just have to empty your lungs totally, and then you just put your head underwater and you will descend naturally. Am I correct to say that, Kevin?
Correct. So there's some tricks here I would like to share with you. Yes, like what you say is like every 20 kilo, you actually carry one more weights. But some tricks here, actually what I do is that, so I actually have, I probably can see this one, okay? So as you go down feet first, right? Okay. So a lot of times is that a lot of students, they actually, I mean, like for more advanced students that I teach, if you know how to do a reverse kick, you see, so you see, right? Okay, you imagine yourself, this is your leg, okay? So a lot of times you try to empty your lung, okay, but you still cannot descend, okay? So there's a small little trick here, is that what I do is that I actually do a reverse. See, right, it's my hand. So as you do the reverse, right, it kind of like pull your whole body go down when you do the reverse, okay? So up until 3 to 4 meters, right, where all your air, your body, I mean the air spaces in your body, on your intestines, it get compressed, okay? And of course the wetsuit, it get compressed. Then you start to feel like, okay, actually I can go down like that, okay? Of course you need to empty your lung. But a lot of times, right, when they say they empty your lung, right, when they empty your lung, right, and they still spread their hands, I mean, like very big. So you see, right, when you spread your leg very big, when you spread your leg very big, your hand very big, the surface area will stop you going down. So you need to put down your hands, your leg, and if you can add some reverse kick, okay, and empty your lung at the same time from 0 to 5 meters. I'm wearing, just to share with you, I'm wearing a 3 mm wetsuit. I mean,
Without weights.
I'm with one weight, only 1 kilo, and I'm 60, almost 70 kilo. Okay, by right, if you see that, probably I need 3 weights, but I
Yeah.
just carry one weight and go down.
Yeah.
Because a lot of times, like students always say that, this is a little bit, it's very hard for me to tell you just using the breathing technique. But a lot of times when you hit that 5 to 10 meters already, right, and you're cruising mode, I always tell my students, like at 50 meters, you're actually at cruising mode, okay? So you will feel that, hey, I'm carrying one weight, I'm actually quite heavy. I'm actually quite heavy, and then you probably need to breathe a little bit more. So this one is actually you need to go and try out, and you need to, I mean, of course, the best is actually you try out with an experienced dive professional, so that they can tell you, and of course with somebody actually looking at you, and you go and practice that breathing patterns. Okay, and of course when you lost the, I mean, not say as you use the air tank, you probably left 50 bar. Let's say you left 70 bar when you do a 5 meter 3 minute 60 stops. Of course, you're going to be very buoyant. But at that time also, your kicking skill is also very important. I would say that, perfect buoyancy, right, is sometimes it's not about the weight, it's like the weight. I would say more on the breathing patterns and your kicking style. Okay, so if you know how to do the frog kick, right? So if you see, like, this is my okay, imagine this is my leg. Okay, so imagine this person with the leg is like that. Okay, like that. Okay, So I want you to look at this leg, okay, but this is my leg. So you probably can push the water up a little bit and try to achieve that equilibrium between, imagine the seesaw, okay?
At the safety stop.
And then when you do the safety stop, a lot of times people say that, like when I teach, they say that, oh, you kind of like you're teaching technical diving. I say that sometimes technical divers, they actually have a very good kicking style. And then depends compared to those recreational where they actually just stand, and apart from that, right, I will say that the cummerbund, the cummerbund on your BC, you need to actually like really tighten it up when you do your safety stop. A lot of times, right, it's because the tank from the behind, it kind of like lift up, right? When it lift up too much, it will kind of bring your legs up. When you bring your legs up, right, then you cannot control. And then you try to kick down again, then you float back up again. So I will say that the kicking style also very important. And the BC, it is also play a very big play a big role on your buoyancy. For me, I personally, I like BC with cross strap, because the moment I tighten my cross strap, right, so you will pull back the tank back to your back. Then you can have a full control of the tank, because it's like the tank, right, when it's getting lighter, right, it's not the head, it's not the tank mouth part. The tank mouth part will be the heaviest, but the other end will be actually lifted up. This is where actually your leg will actually be lifted up. So kicking style and breathing patterns will play a very big control of your perfect buoyancy.
Great sharing, Kevin. Personally, I believe with the right weight, and once you achieve the descending method, you don't really have to inflate your BCD. You just have to breathe in. It will slow your descent.
Yeah.
And I believe one of your slide shares about the balloon. You might want to show that to our audience. Yeah.
Yeah. Right. Yeah. Correct. So this is talk about the Boyle's law. So as we move down, right, you can see you probably have 101. I'll say probably 100% of the air spaces in our body. Okay. So as we move down, right, so the balloon will actually get half. So if you see, right, the biggest changes of volume is actually from 0 to 10 meter, because of course from half to 1/3 is actually is from 50% to 33%, which is like 17% of the volume changes. But from 0 to 10 meter is actually 50% of the volume changes. So if you can actually, like I say, right, if you can actually do a little bit of reverse kicking, your body is straight, plus a little bit of reverse kick, and exhale everything from your lung, and you can go down. Once you reach probably 3 to 5 meter, right, you feel like, hey, I won't float up anymore, and you can continue your journey up to 10 meters. Then you found that, hey, actually I don't really need that much of weight to go diving with. The 1 kilo is actually, for me, is actually to compensate. For me personally, it's just to compensate the tank when it gets lighter. So probably I left like 70 bar and it gets up, right? So that weight, right, is actually to compensate that lifting, when I lost my buoyancy. So apparently for me myself, as when I go to diving, right, I cannot carry weight with with my 3mm. I don't carry my 1 kilo weight. But the thing is, when I left probably 50 or 70 bar, and I'm going to do my safety stops, I also will have problems with my buoyancy. So it's like, it kind of like the tank will actually how to say, like, it will pull me up to the surface. But of course, like I say, right, if you have a good proper kicking style, it will helps you to actually maintain that buoyancy. So you breathing and kicking actually need to have the synergy in between that. So you need to go and practice it more with a dive professional, and then an instructor who actually can teach you more about that.
Kevin, thanks for sharing a lot of this perfect buoyancy and how we maneuver underwater. I believe when we talk about maneuverability, breathing technique, and buoyancy, I think it coincide with each other. And then how we should actually use our lungs as in part of ourselves instead of our equipment to maintain that buoyancy underwater, and of course without without a proper kicking technique, we won't be able to achieve that. But that said, with a proper breathing technique, okay, and a proper kicking style, once you're underwater, no matter which level you are at, you will be able to maneuver underwater, not using your BCD, but using your lungs. I elaborate. So imagine your lungs is 100% like that. Okay. And then when you are at 20 meters, it's like that. Okay. So to be able to maneuver, you just, okay, talking about 100% breathing and 10% breathing. You do not really need to have 100% breathing to really get all your oxygen. You might only need 50%, and then you exhale to 10%. Okay, so you 50%, and you exhale to 10%, and you inhale to 50%. If you need to ascend more, maybe you inhale 70%, and then you exhale another 50%. I
Yep.
mean, Kevin, I believe you agree with what I say, right? I mean,
Yep.
we don't really need to inflate the BCD, deflate. We really just need to use lungs, and then it's really how you fill your lungs with maybe just 10%. I just need 10% to ascend, to clear that obstacle, or maybe I need to inhale 30% to clear the obstacle that is at a higher height.
Yep.
Kevin, elaborate.
Yep.
Correct me if I'm wrong. Yeah.
Yeah, it's true. See, right, a lot of times the students, right, they actually they treat the things like a leaf, I mean, of course, don't press the inflate button to, but again, like they will say, like, for me, it's very cumbersome because like any air in the BC, actually, like when you go up and I mean, like not to say go up and down, as you ascend, the bubbles get bigger. Then you remove all the air from the BC. It's for me, it's very cumbersome because at the same point, actually, you actually use up the air from the air tank. So it's like you actually can increase your air consumption. I mean, not to say, sorry, it's not to say, I'll rephrase again. Save your air, I would say. Like you inflate, deflate, inflate, deflate, inflate, deflate. So without you knowing, right, actually the air that you inflate and deflate just now, right, you can save it up and you can actually have a longer dive time. I mean, when I say longer dive time, as in like some people will actually have more air consumption. Okay, so this extra air, right, you can save it up. Okay, and a lot of times my student, right, they have a higher air consumption is because they carry too much weight. So imagine, right, I go back up to these pictures. Okay, so if you look at this picture, developing proper pattern, just look at this picture right now. So imagine right now these always just enough for weights. But if you can see, right, if you carry 4 weights, a lot of times the weights will put at our waist there, right, the waist area, right. So when you put these diver on the waist area, okay, so this weight, right, it will pull your butt, I mean your waist area down, okay, and you're going to inflate air into your BC. So of course, the air will actually go to the highest point, right? Okay, so when it goes to the higher point, your shoulder here, it will tilt it up, okay, it will tilt it up, and because of the weight, it will carry you down, and you go and do the kicking. So imagine right now, you see the picture is 15 degrees. So if you carry a lot of weights, your body will be like probably go up like that, probably at 30 or 40 degrees, and you try to fight the current at 30 and 40 degrees and see, or you try to cruise your body at 30 to 40 degrees and see, and you try to kick. You have a lot of resistance. When you have a lot of resistance, right, this actually where air the constant, you try to breathe. You feel like you're very tired, because you're not very streamlining, I would say. So you see, right, imagine if you carry lesser weight and no air in your BC. Is it for you to achieve a 15 degree or 10 degree or 5 degree, I would say, okay, of a streamlining? It is easier because there's no air in your BC. But because you go and carry too much weight on your body area, on your waist area, see, this thing will pull you down. If you don't inflate air into your BC, okay, you will sink, right? Then you start to what? You start to panic, this and that. That's why you're going
Then you
to
hyperventilate.
yes, then you start
Yes.
to hyperventilate. So if you ask me, right, these are the things that I've seen throughout my diving career. Then I found out that actually, if you carry lesser weight, yes, at first point it's very hard because I asked you to play around with your breathing patterns. It's very hard because of divers, you already used to 4 weights because your breathing pattern already used to that 4 weights. So you don't know how to breathe. Not to say you don't know how to play, you don't know how to play around with that breathing patterns. The moment I take one weight out, right, you kind of like, hey, how come I say I keep on floating up? Then usually what I do is I slowly ask my student, take out one weight, try to play around with your breathing patterns. And I always personally like to train my student at 0 to 5 meters. A lot of people think that, hey, I need to go deep to train my buoyancy. No, actually from 0 to 5 meters, I would say that it's the best, I would say probably in fact 0 to 3 meters is the best depth to train your buoyancy, because this is the place where actually there's the biggest changes of the volume. So if you can survive and do a very nice streamlining and then the neutral buoyancy at 0 to 5 meters, I would say that you will have no problem at 10 meters, you will have no problem at 50 meters.
Kevin, thanks for sharing this. I believe what happened to new divers especially is because they are not experienced enough to breathe underwater. That's it. What I mean by breathing underwater. Okay, Kevin, let me ask you something, Kevin. Now we are on land. You're in your room, I'm in my room. We are breathing 100%. We are exhaling. I won't say 100%. We are breathing in whatever we breathe, and we are exhaling whatever we take in. Am I correct to say that?
Yeah.
So when when we explain to new divers and new student, hey, student, breathe 30%. Breathe 30%. They were, huh? Breathe 30%, exhale 35%. What is breathe 30% when I'm in my room? I'm just breathing 80%, I exhale 80%. I breathe in 70%, I exhale 70%. You get what I mean? So today we have Kevin to explain this whole synergy of breathing technique. I think it's a good exposure for new divers and new students who who wants to learn about breathing techniques. And I think Kevin has a lot of understanding and explanation. And I think today's explanation and technique kind of will allow you to explore more when you go diving next. I mean, Kevin, am I correct to say that?
Yep.
I mean, in a room, 80%, 80%. Inhale 80%, exhale 80%. If I inhale 60%, I exhale 60%. So probably students will not know, or new divers will not know that, oh, I maneuver this, I need to breathe 50%, I go up. Then when I want to go down, I exhale 30%, I maintain neutral buoyancy. It's not like that, but just 50%, 30%, then I inhale, exhale, inhale, exhale, inhale, exhale. So, yeah.
So it kind of like actually you're playing around with your breathing pattern. So
And
at
your
one
lungs. Yeah.
when diving is not about looking at the fishes, when you enjoy the neutral buoyancy underwater. For me personally, when you go diving, yes, I know. I mean, for new divers, I want to look at big stuff, mantas, this and that. But for us, like when you go into a dive professional, like what Carter is actually saying, like we want you to go into the side if you see some obstacle in front, like probably you can breathe a little bit more just to get the buoyancy up, and then you probably exhale a little bit more just to go down. You need to play, at times you actually can play around with your buoyancy just to go through that obstacles. So like what Carter is saying, when you breathe in, so like when you are sitting and listening to me talking, you don't breathe like right, you don't do like that, right? You don't breathe like that, right? So a lot of times students like I would say that when you are resting, I would say when you are resting, you breathe like just normal, like So you don't make your lung very, very, very big. But if we can do it like very, I would say that's like a kind of like relaxed breathing. But the thing is, what I add on in underwater diving is that you need to play around with the size of the volume of your lung. Okay, if you can play around with it and control, not to say I wouldn't say control, play around with the size of the lung. Okay, and then continue. Like let's say I took my lung. Okay, I know. Now I'm going down with 2 weights. I'm slightly heavy. Okay. I'm sorry, I go down with 1 weight. I know now my tank is fully charged, 200 bar. I'm actually negative buoyant. Okay, then I put 1 weight. So for me myself, actually, I feel like I'm actually a little bit, heavy. I would say a little bit negative buoyant.
Negative, yeah.
At the first probably 10 to at the first 20 minutes of my dive. Okay, so I probably use my lung to make it a little bit size bigger. So when I breathe, right, it's like my lung is quite big, but probably after on the 40th minute, or maybe after 50 minutes, 40 minutes of diving. So when I lost the pressure on my tank, probably I left around 70 bar. Then maybe you breathe like that. My lungs is getting smaller, but I also breathe like that. So a lot of times for new divers, they actually feel like, when I make my lungs a little bit, the volume size a bit smaller, right? I cannot breathe this and that, So I would say that it's because that you are not relaxed enough underwater.
Kevin, I totally understand, because I get that question as well from my friends. But I think it's all about practice, and because in a room they don't breathe 100%, let out 20%, and then breathe another 20% and let out the 20%
Yep.
with the 80% remaining in their lungs.
Yep.
So I hope this technique that Kevin from SSI, course director, could actually share with you. I think this is a very insightful information to allow you to practice when you are diving next underwater. I think this is a very good perfect breathing technique to achieve a very good buoyancy for your next dive. Kevin, am I right to say that?
Yes, I will say definitely so, because I actually I will say that I will say that this if you can master these breathing techniques, right, I will say that 90% up to 95% your buoyancy will be very, very good underwater, because you really command your buoyancy underwater. It's like you have control, you have control on your buoyancy. So you don't actually use the inflate and deflate. For me personally, when I actually fully empty my BC, right, I don't like my BC hose to actually dangle when I go diving, right? Because I like to take pictures. So this BC hose, actually, when it goes down and then it will dangle and then it will hit the corals, I don't really like it, because for environmental, it's not good for the environment. So I will actually, me personally, I don't suggest all divers to do that. I actually will kind of like have a kind of like a rubber bungee cord to actually cut it, so that it's actually it actually goes near to my body, so that when I go close to the coral and take pictures, it won't hit the corals. So that's for me personally. But I will say that if you haven't mastered the buoyancy technique yet, please don't do that. Yeah.
I agree with you, Kevin. Honestly, with the perfect buoyancy, perfect breathing technique, I won't say perfect, but the near close breathing technique, you will be able to control your buoyancy underwater. Okay.
Yeah.
And Kevin, I think that's very good sharing. And I think we should convene to the next session. I think our time is up. And the reason why I have Kevin today is the previous topic we are talking about what BCD to choose. And then today we are talking about the breathing technique. It all concise, and it is related and linked towards the perfect diving you're achieving for. And Kevin, thanks for your time tonight.
Thank you very much, everyone.
Thank you.
Thank you.